Nilsson, the mad scientist of muscle, and what I've got for you today here is a demonstration of how I warm up and get prepared for a 1 rep max. Now, I'm going to do this with the straight bar deadlift. This is really, it's a great overall body exercise, but it does require some specialized techniques for warming up. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you exactly what I do. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is how you have to do it, or excuse me, or necessarily how you should do it. This is how I find I get the best results, where I don't spend so much time warming up that I lose strength, but I also don't spend not enough time and actually injure myself while I'm doing it. So I'm going to kind of run through each step by step as I go through this. What I'd like to start with here is just kind of like a general warm-up, just to get the blood flowing. What I'll do, just moving the arms around, getting arm circles going, like so, both directions, just to loosen up the shoulder joints. Like I said, get the blood flowing. What I'll also do, just kind of running in place a little bit, I might jog up and down the gym floor, jumping around like so. This basically is all just to get the circulation going. Now, one of the real tricks that I like to use, especially for lower body stuff and for deadlifting, is this. Squat down, brace your elbows inside your knees, and then try and squeeze your knees in at the same time you're pushing your elbows out. What this does is help move blood out of the abdomen. It gets sequestered there just during the day because your body doesn't need all that blood circulating around, so it's basically stored in your abdomen. What this does is actually squeezes that blood out into your extremities, into the working muscles. So brace those in, squeeze, and go for about 10 seconds. And really try and press down with your abdominal muscles. Now you do the same thing on the outside. Brace your arms on the outside of your knees. Try and force your knees out when you're bringing your arms in. This is going to warm up the glutes, the medius, minimus, and maximus. I find it really helps, not only, like I said, with the abdominal blood flow, but just kind of activating the glute muscles and basically a lot of muscle mass in your body. So that's kind of like the general warm-up to start with. So, like I said, arm circles, the jogging around, doing the blood movement. This could be like biking, this could be running on a treadmill for a couple of minutes. Not enough to tire yourself out, but just enough to get the blood started. So, as far as loading the weight goes, this is going to depend a lot on how much you think your max is going to be. For me, I'm going to be aiming for about 500 pounds on this max. So, I'll start with just one plate on the bar and do maybe a set of 4 to 6 reps here, nice and easy, just to get kind of in the groove of the exercise. And you'll notice I'm not wearing shoes here. If you have a gym where they allow you to not wear shoes, this is the best way to do deadlifts. If you need to wear shoes, make sure that they are very thin shoes, Converse, that kind of thing. The closer you can get your foot to the ground with the less padding, the more power you can transfer into the ground, and the better your lift is going to be. So, now, one important point to note here. Even when you're doing a warm-up with light weight, you still want to assume that you're using heavy weight. You don't want to loosen up your form. You don't want to flop around. You want to keep everything nice and tight, just as though you were lifting heavy weight. That's one of the real secrets to maintaining good solid form when you're doing this kind of thing. So what I'm going to do, I got 135, I'm going to add 225. So I just did one set with that very light weight, very, very light weight, just to get into the movement a little bit. So I'm going to put 225 and go again. All right, so now I've got 225 on the bar. I'm not going to do a lot of reps here. I'm just going to do 2 to 3 reps with this weight. So as you can see, even though I'm going for a max that's a lot heavier than that, I'm not fatiguing myself on these warm-up sets. That's absolutely critical. You want to get the proper muscle tissue and connective tissue warmed up, but you don't want to fatigue it. basically what I'll do as I'm doing these, I'm loading the bar, I'm continuing to keep the limbs moving, shaking things out. I'm not doing really any static stretching. Research has shown that this can limit your strength temporarily. While you're doing this, it's good to finish with stretching, but I actually prefer to avoid stretching before. Not saying you can't do it, but just know that it may affect your strength levels. So another plate on the other side, and we'll keep going. Now, if I'm doing specifically a max rep deadlift, I might throw in a few sets of hyperextensions here, interspersed between these warm-up sets, just to put some specific blood flow into the lower back area. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but just know that is a possibility here as well. So, got 315 in the bar. I'll do 2 reps with this. So just 2 reps. As you're getting into the higher and higher weights, you're doing fewer and fewer reps. That's really to save your strength and save your power for those heavier sets while still getting your body used to those heavier loads. Just that simple. So I'm going to throw another plate on the other end, bring it up to 405. Alright, so I've got 405 in the bar here. Now it's important to note, as I'm increasing the loads here, I'm also taking a little bit longer rest in between these warm-up sets. So in between the 305 and the 315 and the 405, I'm actually taking about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes rest in order to preserve the power for the heavier sets. You don't want to blast through these warm-ups too fast. You want to have it close enough so that you're getting the warm-up effect, but far enough that you're still preserving your strength. So this is where I start adding in the grip assistance. Since I'm not a competitive power lifter, I don't want to know how much my grip can hold, I want to know how much I can lift off the ground. So I'm using what are called Holland hooks. These are great for doing heavy deadlifting with. They loop halfway around the bar so that there's no rolling or sliding. So really like these. Definitely worth looking into if you want to get some good grip assistance. So these also allow you to use the overhand, underhand grip, mixed grip as well. So this is just 405, it's going to be 1 rep. And that 1 rep, as you start getting into these heavier loads, is going to give you a good gauge of how much you're going to be able to add to the bar and really do for your max deadlift. So that felt pretty good. Didn't have any hitches pulling off the ground, wasn't slow. This is going to be a good lift. So then my next step, I'm going to put another 50 pounds in the bar and do 455 for my next lead-in. You can't really call this a warm-up set anymore because you're getting into a near max weight, but almost a maximum weight is what we're looking at here. So something that gets your body used to that very 95 to 98% of your true 1RM. This is what we're looking at next. Okay. So now we're getting into the heavier weight. Got 455 in the bar. And this set is going to give you, a really good gauge of how much you're going to be able to go above and beyond that. Now, one of the tricks here with this one is you want it to be fairly close to your 1 rep max, so that you're tuning your nervous system to these heavier loads. But you also don't want it so heavy that it, basically brings down your 1 rep max, that it's too much and pre-fatigues you for the heaviest set. Now, when you're doing this heavy set, especially with deadlifts, one of the tricks that I like to use is actually visualize driving your legs in through the floor rather than focusing on pulling the bar up. If you focus on that bar as a stationary object and you try and push your legs down into the floor, you're actually going to create a lot more neural drive, and it's going to actually help you lift heavier weights a lot more easily. So it actually does work, and it's something you want to give a try next time you're doing heavy deadlifts. Not too bad. That gives me a good indication of what I'm going to go up to on the next set. All right. Now, based on the feedback that I felt when I was doing the 455, I'm actually just going to go for 475 here on this max. This is kind of the thing you learn with a bit of experience as you're doing these max out lifts, is you can kind of gauge how much strength you have left in the tank. If I were to go for 500, I think that's too big of a jump at this point in my training. So I'm just going to aim for 475. crank this out and see how I feel. If I feel that's close enough to my 1 rep max, and I'm going to stick with that. If I feel I have more left in the tank, I may rest another 3 to 4 minutes, maybe throw another 5 pounds in the bar, maybe another 10 if I really feel stronger with it, and take it from there. But what I want to do is go forward enough so that I'm getting close to the 1 rep max, but not so much that I'm going over it. And that's really the kind of balancing act. And the more you do this, sometimes you'll fail, sometimes you'll try it and you won't be able to get it, and you'll have to back off and try again. So these are the kind of things that you do have to figure out as you're doing the 1 rep max testing and the 1 rep max lifting. So the predicted 1 rep maxes are all well and good, but when you actually get yourself under this heavy weight and pulling this heavy weight, pressing this heavy weight, that's as much as your body can handle. It's a whole different ballgame, and you're going to need to actually get some experience doing it. So here's the actual 1 rep max I'm going to go for today here at 475. There you have it. And based on the feedback that I've got off this, that's where I'm going to end it. I think that's about close enough to my 1 rep max. I might have another 5 pounds in me, but I think that's good for now. So that is how to warm up and test for your 1 rep max, specifically for deadlifts. Like I said, this is how I do it. You can do it a little bit different. You can warm up a little more. I find this gives me the best results.